We're standing by the tallest waterfall in the Ein Gedi Nature Reserve in the Judean desert. The Ein Gedi Reserve has 4 different springs which are fed from rainwater that fell over 20 kilometers further to the west in the Hebron Hills and emerged in the form of springs that form also waterfalls like this one here on the cliffs of the Judean desert near the Dead Sea. It is here in Ein Gedi where King David, who was running away from his jealous father-in-law, King Saul, was hiding inside a cave when, in an amazing event of divine providence, Shaul entered the very same cave that David and his loyal soldiers were hiding inside. The verse tells us in the book of Samuel, Vayal David Misham Vayeshev Bemetzudat Ein Gedi, and David went up from there and dwelt in the strongholds of Ein Gedi, which is higher up on top of the cliff. Vayiki kasher shav Shaul me'achrei Plishtim, and it was after Shaul had returned from chasing the Philistines. Vayagidu lo lemor hine David b'midbar Ein Gedi, and Shaul then was told that David was hiding here in the wilderness of Ein Gedi. Vayikach Shaul 3,000 ish bachur mikol Yisrael, and Shaul took with him 3,000 choice men from all of Israel. Vayelech levakesh et David ve'anashav al pnei tzur hayelim, and he went to look for David and his men on top of the rocks of the mountain goat. Vayavo el gidrot hatzon, and he came towards the corrals of the goats ala derech, along the way. Visham, and over there, me'ara, there was a cave there. Vayavo Shaul le'asech et reglav, and Shaul entered the cave to moisten his feet. David ve'anashav b'yarkatei amara yoshvim, and David and his men were in the back of the cave.
ויאמרו אנשי דוד אליו, הנה היום אשר אמר השם אליך, הנה אנוכי נותן את אויבך בידיך, ועשית לו כאשר ייטב בעיניך. ויקם דוד ויכרות את כנף המעיל אשר לשאול בלק. And the pasuk in Shmuel Aleph, chapter 24, verse 5 says, David's men said to him as they were hiding in the cave, they were hiding in the back of the cave, and Shaul went into the front of the cave. To moisten his feet means he went to go to the washroom. And he covered himself with his royal cloak as he went to the bathroom. And the men at the back of the cave said to David, they said to him, verse 5, Behold, this is the day of which Hashem said to you, Behold, I am delivering your enemy into your hand, and you may do to him as you please. So David arose and stealthily cut off the corner of Saul's robe. And here is a symbol of Saul's robe. And from behind him, as Saul sat going to the bathroom, and his me'il, his cloak covered him. From behind him, at a distance, he cut off the corner of the me'il, the corner of the cloak of the king, and he held it in his hand. And yet, the verse goes on to say, in pasuk 6, even though he cut off the corner of the cloak of the king, he could have killed him as he sat there going to the washroom with his cloak covering him. He cut off his cloak while he was going to the bathroom at a distance of about 7-8 feet of him. And yet, David felt bad. He felt guilty having cut off the cloak of the king. And it says in verse 6, afterwards, however, David's conscience troubled him for having cut off the corner of Saul's cloak, his garment. Vayomer la'anashav, and David said to his men, Chalila li me Hashem, im e'aseh et hadavar hazeh la'adoni le'Mashiach Hashem, yishloach yadi bo ki Mashiach Hashem hu. And David said to his men, it would be sacrilegious, blasphemy before God, for me to do this thing to my Lord, the anointed of Hashem, Mashiach Hashem, to send forth my hand against him, to kill him, for he is the anointed of Hashem. Verse 8 says, Vayishasa David et anashav badvarim, v'lo netanam lakum el Shaul, v'shaul kam me'ama'ara VeLechtecha BaDerech. And David sundered his men with rhetoric. He calmed them down with his words and did not permit them to rise up against Saul. Then Saul rose up from the cave and continued on the way. This place is called Ein Gedi. If you rearrange the letters of Ein Gedi, it spells the word Gan Eden. This place, to me, is my favorite place in the world. To me, it's the most beautiful place in the world. Waterfalls, cliffs, rocks, caves. And behind us in a moment, in part 2, you'll see the cliffs of Ein Gedi, Yam HaMelech, the Dead Sea, and the Arvat Moab, the plains of Jordan, the mountains of Jordan. The question must be asked, in this beautiful place, why is this place so beautiful? Why is this Ein Gedi Gan Eden? What is the beauty of this place? And we know the Meforshim tell us, the commentaries tell us, our sages tell us, that anything physical is a manifestation of something spiritual. That anything physically beautiful has a spiritual beauty to it. There's a spiritual underpinning. There's a beautiful philosophical spiritual underpinning of this place which lends itself to the physical beauty of this place. Anything which has spiritual beauty, beautiful beauty of shleimus, of spirituality, is expressed in this world in a physical way in the form of beauty. What is the spiritual beauty of this place? As we just read, the opportunity was in the hands of David to destroy his enemy, King Saul. Saul was seeking after King David to destroy him, to kill him. He knew beforehand, in an event that happened beforehand, that Shmuel HaNavi, cut off his cloak. His cloak got torn by Shmuel HaNavi because King Saul failed to kill the sheep of Amalek. And Shmuel said to him, God has torn from you. As he turned to go away from Shmuel the Navi, Samuel the prophet, Samuel tore his cloak, just like the tearing of the cloak just now here in Ein Gedi. How unbelievable that his cloak was torn twice, once by Shmuel HaNavi and once by King David. And he knew then that the person who would tear his cloak would be the one to take over the kingship after him. And Saul only reigned for 2 years as king, and then David took over. The newly anointed king that no one knew yet. As David Jellick said a moment ago, he was already anointed king in this place. When he came to this place and being chased by Shaul, he was already anointed king in front of Yishai and his brothers, his father Yishai, David ben Yishai and his brothers. But no one knew it yet. It was not publicized. It was not accepted yet. Saul was still the king, but he was anointed to be the next king. And this Me'il, this torn Me'il, this torn cloak of the king, was in David's hands now. But had David seized the opportunity, he could have at that moment killed David, killed Saul. As he went into the cave, he came to the front of the cave, took his knife, and instead of cutting off his coat, he could have cut the neck of Saul HaMelech. Why did he not do that? Because a Me'il, the covering of the king, represents tznius. He went to the bathroom in the cave and he covered himself with his cloak, which means he covered himself with modesty and humility. And David saw that humility. And the Radak says, Vatechas alav. He had compassion on him. And Razal Pirshu, this is the words of the Radak. Rabotenu Zichron L'Bracha Pirshu. Tznius shahaita bach chasa alecha ki muter haya lahorgecha. Because of the tznius, because of the modesty of Shaul, who covered himself with his cloak as he went to the bathroom. When David saw that modesty, he said, I cannot kill the king. He acts with tznius, he acts with modesty. I cannot kill the king. Chasa alecha ki muter haya lahorgecha. I had permission to kill you. Hirodef ata, you are a seeker, you are chasing after me. The who va'akem lahorgecha hashkem lahorgo. Anyone who comes to kill you, you are allowed to kill him in self-defense. David was allowed to kill King Saul, and yet he refrained to do so only because, says Radak, because he saw the tznius, the modesty of the King Shaul. This is the beauty of this place. King Shaul, King Saul, expressed modesty as the king in the cave. He covered himself with his ve'il. He covered himself with his royal cloak when he went to the bathroom. And when King David saw that, the new King David saw that, he said, I cannot, because of the spirituality, the ruchnius, the shlemos of this king, acting with tznius in private, I cannot come to kill the Mashiach Hashem, the anointed one of Hashem. And therefore the beautiful nature of this place, Ein Gedi, is beautiful because of the spiritual modesty expressed in this place by King Saul, and also because of the self-control of King David. And now in part 2, we'll talk about the dialogue between King David and Shaul about this piece of cloak, this me'il, the symbol of kingship that was torn from Shaul and now in the hands of King David. Stay tuned for part 2, Ein Gedi part 2.